Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Hello, welcome to Across the Park podcast. It feels like a lifetime ago. Me and Judgy were together talking about the Blues, but we're back today. Before we do get into what we're going to talk about today, me and Judgy have unfortunately not been able to get together a lot, and a lot of very, very kind people at the Everton Women's last game of the season yesterday spotted me, came over, and I told Judgy such very, very kind words about the show, asking where we've been. Real life happens sometimes. Judgy has got a big, massive loads of work that he's been given. I've got a different career, so should do better. We should do better. So we're doing an online one today. Judgy, first and foremost, how have you been? Life's better when Everton win, isn't it?
Yeah, life's better when Everton win and when the sun's out. So two of them together, it's happy days.
Big thanks to our sponsors, always Globe Gas and Heating, and thank you everyone for watching. If you can click like and subscribe, it does help us. Judgy, we beat Fulham yesterday. I think it was a bigger game for Fulham than it was for us. They're in that race for who can finish in the potential Europa or the Conference League places, and I actually thought, based on the Ipswich Town performance last week, I thought we might have been in the spot of bother yesterday. In the first half performance went that way. But we come up with 3 points. What was your reaction at full time to that?
I think surprise more than anything else. I said in our group before the game when I seen the lineup and seen Michael Keane come back in, and obviously we'll come on to that. Yeah. Ashley Young coming in. I mean, I get it. You know, Patterson hasn't exactly set the world alight, and you know the manager's probably concerned with some of their attacking players and maybe wants a little bit more experience in there, but it didn't inspire me. You know, you see McNeil on the bench, you see Ndiaye on the bench. I was struggling to find positives from the lineup itself, and as you say, the first 20-25 minutes, half an hour maybe, it looked like it was going to be a really tough afternoon for us. But you know, we've dug in there, which we've shown under Moyes and to a certain extent under Dyche as well, that we can do that, stay in the game, and obviously the changes made a massive difference, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And really pleasing to get the win. But I think the overwhelming emotion at the end was probably surprise.
Well, look, let's start with the lineup. So we're sitting on WhatsApp at 1:45 yesterday, and we're talking about the change that we've seen. Jack Harrison comes in, Charlie Akraz starts wide, Abdou Doucouré comes in. I think the Keane one is probably one we don't really have to discuss. It was enforced. There was an injury to Jake O'Brien, so Ashley Young comes in. So you look at a number of changes there from the Ipswich game. Were you surprised at the amount of changes that David Moyes made?
Yes and no. I mean, the last couple of shows, although as you say, we haven't been on very often, but the last show that I done with Joe Thomas, we were talking about the number of choices that David Moyes has got to make going into this transfer window, and the number of players that are either out of contract, obviously return to their parent clubs, or could be players that we could trade. So I'm not surprised that he's took the chance to look at some of them players. I mean, next week is going to be a game which I think he's going to be keen to give other players minutes for different reasons, with it being such an emotional game for us and a massive game for the club.
I agree.
So I think he was probably looking ahead to the next couple of games and looking ahead to the decisions he's got to make in the window, and trying to get one last look maybe at players in different positions and make sure that he's confident that whatever choices he's already made, or whatever movement the club have got lined up in the window, that is the right decision.
The Man City game and the Ipswich game, we sort of bemoaned the lack of impact the changes had. You certainly can't bemoan it yesterday. I thought the personnel made a difference. I thought McNeil and Ndiaye made a difference, but by God, when you put Charlie Akraz as that 10, I thought Everton was such a better team.
Yeah, you just got someone. I mean, you're right. I think you certainly can't overlook the impact that the two players who came on had, but also the impact that those two players had on Alcaraz, because they were attracting opponents to them. You know, when you get a player like McNeil and and Dyer picking the ball up on the half turn, they're driving a play. Suddenly you've got, you know, the opposition going, listen, we need two on them, and it just opens up a big gap in the middle of the park for Charlie Alcaraz, which he absolutely lapped up. I mean, I've said, I think when he first come in, I thought, listen, this is a number 10 that we can really get behind, and he's a little bit different. But then there were times in games where he just got a little bit lost in that position. But yesterday, I think when the game was open and there was spaces to drive into, he really did come into his own.
Yeah, he thrived. He looked like someone who's enjoying his football. If you look at the great clips that Everton put on, they have like people recording, you know, remotely, not remote, like mobile phones on the pitch. And when he helped win the corner for the first and the second goal, and then he was part of the third goal, he looked like he just looked like he was enjoying that role. Now, the jury seems to be out on Alcaraz. We've, in my opinion, we've purposely not triggered the amount of games that he had to start to sign him. And now that when that figure went, we started starting him, which shows that David Moyes wasn't maybe 100% convinced. But would you like to see him in an Everton share permanently if we sign Charlie Alcaraz for the reported £12 million on a 4-year deal? Is that a signing you'd like to make?
Without doubt, for me. I mean, that fee in this modern era is nothing, is it? And when you've got a player, listen, I think he has been relatively inconsistent, and as you say, I think Moyes is not entirely sure. You know, he has said that we have got money to spend, but regardless, it's not going to be a bottomless pit of money because of the various conditions that are in place for every club. So you do have to be wise, and Moyes has always been one to really be careful about how he spends his money, and even if he was thinking, listen, that 12 million or £10 million or whatever is a decent investment. You never know what else is going to come up. So another player could come up for 20 million, and suddenly it's like, well, I'd rather have him than him. So I don't blame him for hedging his bets. I think it is a sensible thing to do. But I think the impact he's had in various games, he hasn't been consistent, but the impact he's had in various games and his versatility, for me, and his age, makes him a shoo-in.
There's two more players I want to talk about, and then we'll summarise Fulham and move on. The first one is this guy getting older or younger? Idrissa Gueye. He covers every blade of grass.
Yeah,
like, he's so important.
I've always been a massive fan of Idrissa Gueye. You know that from previous periods. At times he's been at the club, but just as much this time, he's a remarkable player in terms of, as you say, his athleticism, his work rate, his ability to cover so many key areas of the pitch. And if we're not able to, or we're not willing to renew his contract, that is as big a hole to fill as any in this team. So I mean, we'll come on and probably in future shows to talk again about whether we should keep, shouldn't keep. I know you're going to mention Abdoulaye Doucouré.
Yeah.
But if you put those two next to each other and you said to me, look, you've only got one contract that you can sign here, which one would it be? There's no doubt in my mind that it would be Idrissa Gueye.
Yeah, look, I think he would, like you've said there, he would leave a hole. It would be similar to when he left in 2019, and we just couldn't replace him, could we? It took him to come back to replace him. Look, on the other player.
You've got, sorry, just before we go past that, you've got Tim Adabunam, you've got James Garner, and they do offer little bits of what he does, but I don't think I just don't think that definitively a defensive midfielder. Tim Adabunam's still very young, but he's very progressive in the way he plays. He likes to get about the pitch. Guy is not only covers yards, he's very disciplined in the way he plays, and he's very experienced, and you just can't go out and get that type of player without commanding a sizable fee, which as I just said before, we just haven't really got.
No, it's positional play, and the moment he chooses to press, the moment he chooses to go hunting and on the ball, I think it's invaluable that we somehow keep him for another year. And I've said on this show in the past, I think if the Friedkins come in and in black and white this year, you can't offer this age of player the terms he's on. That's not wrong, but there's an exception to these things, and I think he's one. The other player I wanted to talk to about, Judgy, was I watched you on the Sportscast talking about this with Andy Grant, friend of the show. Betto. I looked at a stat this morning, and there's only 2 players since David Moyes arrived who scored more goals in the Premier League than Betto. He's on 7 in that period, January to early May. David Moyes made a comment last night in his press conference where he's challenged Betto to get to 10. If Betto scores 10 goals between January and May, that's not a bad figure, is it?
If he gets 10, you'd look a fool for getting rid of him, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And
there's rumours that he could be the one who Everton get money for.
Yeah, and as much as he became rightfully so a bit of a fan's favourite because he's got more goals, as you say, than anyone, and also he's got critical goals and goals when we needed the most. So he deserves, he deserves his flowers. He deserves all the praise that the Everton fans have given him and the chance and everything like that. But when when the reality kicks in, you go, well, actually, again, like I've just said, you've only got so much to spend. We need a player that's going to help other players improve and develop, as well as deliver a consistent goal return. Can you really put your hands on your heart and say that's better? I mean, someone could argue with me easily, and I couldn't completely deflect it and say, well, why not? He's done it. He scored the goals. It's the only real consistent run he's been given in the team since he's been at the club, if we're going to be honest. He's always been playing second fiddle to someone, or he's always been slightly out of favour. He's had his run in the team, and he's delivered.
He scored one and two in that run. He scored.
Yeah, he's delivered in spades, and again, you talk about Charlie Alcaraz. I think he's someone because the fact that the way Betto plays, he's just constantly running off the shoulder. He doesn't really show to feet very often. He's always running in channels. Yeah. He's powerful. He's a quick lad. So he does create space in between the lines, which the likes of Charlie Alcaraz and you'd argue Dwight McNeil will thrive from. So again, it's a huge decision for the club. It's a huge decision for David Moyes. I couldn't really criticise either way if we done one way or the other. I think that if there's a way you can keep him at the club whilst balancing the books and replacing players in the positions we need to, then I'm all for it. But I guess there's 2 things, isn't there? Is David Moyes still keen on keeping Dominic Calvert-Lewin? If he's not, then Betto's got to stay. I don't think there's any way we can go out and buy 2 strikers. And it doesn't seem to me like Chimiti is going to be someone who's going to get minutes under David Moyes. So I think the less, if Dominic Calvert-Lewin doesn't play between now and the end of the season, and the rumour is true that we've kind of took that contract off the table, then you'd suggest that maybe he is going to keep Betto as whether it's his first choice or second choice. But as you say, that you can't sniff at that goal return. And if he gets to 10 goals, I mean, who was the last forward to get to 10 goals in a season, let alone between January and May?
It was probably without
Calvert-Lewin under Ancelotti.
Exactly, yeah. I don't think Richarlison got those numbers under Lampard. I don't think anybody else has come quite close. But I'm going to ask you flat out. If Leeds offer 20 million for Betto, would you sell him or just keep him? Or is there a number of factors involved in that decision?
Again, I think there are a number of factors. I don't really know because you don't know how significant 20 million is to us. Joe Thomas suggested that there's still a little bit of a hole we've got to fill before the end of June to kind of satisfy, this PSR period. And I would suggest that he knows a bit more than we do about that. So if that's the case, something has got to give. If David Moyes isn't completely sold on Betto and he's got other options, then 20 million is tough to turn down for someone who, just like this goal for he's had, is not the complete striker. But then again, you've got a team coming in going, well, we want him. We've made him our man. And Leeds' business over the last 12 to 18 months has not been bad. They have bought in players that have obviously not only got them into the Premier League, but have developed and improved. So it's tough. It's a really tough one, mate. I'd
keep him, honestly. I think if Leeds signs someone who gets 1 and 2, Leeds stay up. And I'm really hopeful. I'm really hopeful. And I'm putting my neck on the line saying that I don't think we'll be involved next season in a battle. But if for whatever reason we find ourselves in a battle and another team's got a striker who's going to put 1 and 2 on the board, I'd keep him, mate, honestly. I'm frustrated. I went to Anfield and I've seen him miss a golden chance. I watched the Brentford game and I've seen him miss a golden chance. And I watched the fact that his misses do sometimes hinder our results, but I also watch him score score goals, I'd keep.
But he's getting chances. He's getting chances, isn't he? And I mean, we say so often, and the pundits just as much. If you're a striker that's getting chances, you're in the right place at the right time. You've got that instinct. He's clearly got the goal scoring instinct, and that 1,000,000% cannot be said about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I've said it for the last 10 years that Calvert-Lewin has not got a goal scoring instinct, and I don't think that it needs an expert to see or say that. He clearly has. He's got a knack of scoring goals. He's now proven he can do it at this level. So yeah, that's worth its weight in goals, without doubt.
We'll summarise Fulham, but just while you're saying that, my cogs are turning here. We've not spoke on the show about Lewin for a long time. He comes out last week in the media, and it may as well have said, "I want to stay at Everton." His comments were, "Why would I want to go anywhere else? Things are good for me now. There's a new stadium." And he says all the right things. Now, David Moyes, in his press conference last week, also confirms that there's been no contract offered in his time here since January. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has not been offered the contract. Lewin now seems to be sniffing to stay. He's on, reportedly, a very, very big wage. For me, my opinion is his goal return isn't good enough. I think over his Everton career, he's 1-6. Carrying the number 9 shirt on his back. Is there room in a future Everton team for you for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or do Everton now cut their losses, shake his hand, thank him, and be part amicably?
I've gone both ways on this, to be fair. I think, as I mentioned the Joe Thomas show a few times, and if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it, because it's not a show that's about a particular game. It's about this window, and it's a really interesting. He's got some really interesting points, and again, he's got a very, very knowledgeable insight into the club. From an emotive point of view, I would say shake hands and let him go. A part of me thinks cheeky bastard.
Yeah.
Pardon me, French. He's been trying his best pretty openly, him and his agent for the last 5 windows to get out of the club.
Yeah,
he'll have taken most offers, and he's been not necessarily vocal about it, but certainly his agents has been touting him about everywhere to try and get a move. Now suddenly there doesn't seem to be the same demand, and his agents probably telling him, look, if there is a demand, there's certainly not a demand to give you the money that you're on now. Mm-hmm. So there's a big part of me that goes, you know what, we need to move on, and yeah, I think we can do better, and I do think we can do better. But it's whether, again, Moyes and the powers that be at Everton will know if there are genuinely options out there that are better than Calvert-Lewin, and I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't. So with that said, and again with Betto hitting the net again at the weekend, on the weekend before, you couldn't really have a really aggressive argument for keeping Dominic. Listen, no. I think the fact is you can't keep both of them. I don't think we can keep both of them, because I'm fairly certain David Moyes wants someone else, and you've still got other players there as well. So if it's one or the other at this moment in time, given the last 2 weeks where Betto's hit the net twice, then you would have to say Betto.
Yeah, no, look, for 1.5 million, and for the goals he has scored, he's been a great signer. But I think the time now is that a parting of the ways. I think Everton need more than a striker who, for a couple of seasons now, has gone over 20 goals without scoring a game whilst playing. I think we absolutely have. And look, Judgy, Moyes' first spell here, he had a bit of a theme of upgrading the strikers. If you remember that we had the late great Kevin Campbell, who when he came to the end, we brought James Beattie in. When James Beattie wasn't working, Andrew Johnson came in. Then we got Yakubu, Louis Saha. When Louis Saha became 34, Jelavic comes in. Yeah. And Moyes has got a habit historically of upgrading a striker. So
although he did struggle very much so at West Ham to get over Michael Antonio, he could never find in his whole time at West Ham when he was the dogs. No, definitely not. There's nothing going on in the garden apart from my wife flying out there sunbathing. So yeah, although he did do quite well in his first spell at us, he didn't do so well at West Ham with multiple opportunities to replace Michael Antonio. So who knows? Again, it is very difficult because there's so many factors, but yeah, I would be more inclined to say at this moment in time, let Dominic Calvert-Lewin go and let's see if there are better options out there for us.
We're a bit off track there, but let's full stop the Fulham win. That was a great win, wasn't it? Let's just summarise it. That was a great win for Everton.
It was a great win. I think, I think scoring 3 goals away from home is significant. We've not done that for a while. We certainly haven't done it very often. Again, as you say, Charlie Alcaraz showing a little bit more, and Gueye and McNeil getting close to full fitness now.
Yeah,
it's great. Yeah, I think it was a really, really good win and pleasing. Listen, as much as we say for Michael Keane, and we're looking forward to seeing him leave Everton. It was a nice moment for him to get a goal.
100%,
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
It was a nice, and the away fans almost like tongue-in-cheek, ironic songs, but it was a nice goal for him, and hopefully that's his, it's his goodbye.
We're moving into, and we'll touch upon this at the end of the show. We've got a big week planned on Across the Park podcast, but we're moving into an important week in Everton's history. And Michael Keane has been a part of Everton's history, like, whether people are fans or not of that. I think it was nice for them. If that's the way Michael Keane leaves the club, by having his name sung in an Everton victory, I'm absolutely fine with that. Judgy, I was down at the Everton Women's game yesterday versus Tottenham, a 1-1 draw. It was the last game of the season at Walton Hall Park. Possibly the last game they'll play at Walton Hall Park, but we'll come on to that. The atmosphere was great. The 1878 provided some banners that they all held up, and I think Everton Women beat Liverpool at Anfield last week, and Everton Women have been in really good form, and I think the Friedkins are mirroring what they do with the AS Roma women's team, where there's investment. Everton Women's team have been, for the past 3 years, hung out as part of the club. The whole club has been hung out to try and exist and try and survive, and they've had to do it. And I think it's right to give them their flowers. The form has been great, and hopefully better times ahead. Have you been impressed by the way the women have ended the season?
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, I agree with you. It's been a tough time to be an Everton women's player and to be part of that staff, because they've been very much the poorer relations in that WSL, and yeah, you can see from the bit of investment that happens in January that they're not, we're starting to reap the benefits of that. They competed in most games against the top sides as well. Obviously got a great win last week at Anfield, which was fantastic for them again. And it was a lot more, although they broke the luck a little bit, obviously scored really early and got a second. In the end, it was relatively comfortable. So yeah, I'm made up. And I know Brian well, and I know how hard it's been for him and his staff, and great to see him getting a new contract, which is just reward for his hard work and dedication to the club during a very tough period. So it's definitely I think a period of optimism for the women. They're now going into next season, probably having very different aspirations than they were the previous season, which is positive for the city and for women's footy, obviously.
One of our friends from a different podcast and a very, very reputable source, The Bobble, tweeted this week that the wheels are in motion for Everton Women to move into Goodison Park. That caused debate online on X. That caused some fans to say, well, I don't like that. It caused some fans to say, well, I do like that. My personal opinion is, from what I understand, is next year they can't descale Goodison. There's just no time. But the long-term plans would be, can we make Goodison more of a fit? Can Goodison become a 22,000-seater stadium and Goodison stays? And some fans are okay with that, and some fans say, no, when I leave the Southampton game, I want that to be my last memory. Have you got an opinion on it? Would you be okay with Everton with Goodison Park becoming the home of Everton Women?
As it is in its current form, no, because I just don't think it's appropriate. I mean, with the best will in the world, and obviously the greatest respect for the women's team and obviously the supporters, you go there most weeks. We're not going to come close to filling that stadium on a regular basis, and I'm not saying that's the proposition here, because I don't think it is. But I think until the stadium is in an appropriate state and obviously they've been talking about reconfiguring the way it is, etc. Until that happens, I don't think the move should happen. It should feel like the women are walking into something that's fit for them, fit for the league, fit for the relevant attendances that they get. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't be against them using Goodison, but I don't think right now is the time. And I think until
was a rescaled Goodison Park, was if Everton put plans out now and said we're going to make this look like it's a women's stadium, and you might have the park ends staying as the park ends, and you might have the church staying as the big sign on by the church, but it's going to be descaled. Is that something you'd be fine with?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think, from a simple point of view, it's got to be a one-tier stadium, hasn't it, all the way around?
Yeah.
And with that, obviously, the park ends is certainly big enough. Whether it's an end or a side. I think it's fair to say that the two sides of the stadium need to go. Whether we keep the family enclosure and maybe keep the paddock and develop them slightly, maybe, but it needs significant work. I don't think it's fair either on the women to just go, okay, well, this wasn't deemed suitable for the men's team. Let's just have it as it is, because it's been deemed a stadium which is outdated.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of the point I've just made to say that I think it's too big, it also is an outdated stadium and it's not fit for modern football, whether that's women or men. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wouldn't be against a rescaled, different version of Goodison being used by the women. Definitely not. I think the reality, sorry, Mills, is, and I don't know enough about the planning, but you don't need to be a master economist to know that if they did flatten Goodison Park and sold it for property, we're not going to make much money. That the houses in that area don't go for the amount of money that Islington, the Highbury area, go for. Where you're talking £1 million a flat. No. It's not like that. So for those who go, well, we should just sell it, use the money for the lands, etc. It's just not an option. Whether it's a planning option or whether it's a financial option, I think it's worth doing that. So I think it's going to be anything for it to still be a community space that Evertonians were able to visit, for it to still be somewhere that Everton play their football. Then I think that'd still be a nice thing for us.
I would love a descaled version at Goodison Park, the home of Everton Women. I think that would just be amazing, and I think it opens up a lot of doors for the club to do things there as well. It's our history. We've been there since the 1800s. We've got to, if you can preserve that somehow and always keep it. I mean, and the under-21s have just announced that they're not going to play Hague Avenue again. I think all signs move to Goodison will be used, but there's some transfer talk I want to get your opinion on, and I'll give you my opinion. Now, last week, the emotional side of me was giddy by the Richarlison links, and then if I take myself away from that, and you're looking at a 28-year-old player who would cost tens of millions, if you take yourself away from the emotive side, I'm probably not for that, unless it's a loan. David Moyes rubbished the links. Have you got an opinion? Would you like to see any sort of deal that would bring Richarlison back next season?
The right deal, absolutely. And I think you're talking about the various factors. I think the biggest factor in all this equation is we don't really know who Tottenham's manager is going to be next year, and that manager might come in and see Richarlison as being a part of the plans or not a part of the plans. I don't think there's any question. Of course, yeah. So, and if that's the case, you would imagine that he will stay there. But I don't think there's any question if you gave Richarlison a choice that he would come back to Everton. But it's whether, as you say, the money's right. I still think a fully fit Richarlison, 28, 29 or whatever, it is an asset to the squad, and he could be a major asset to the squad. And if you go back and ask me the question again, would you sell Betto for 20 million to get Richarlison in?
It's tough, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is tough. Yeah, regardless of the goal return, as you say, that from Betto, which game for game has been better, I think you get more of a player out of Richarlison. So really tough one. I would love to bring him back under the right, with the right terms and the right financial deal. And I think if a manager comes in that doesn't fancy him, I think he's still got 3 years on his contract at Tottenham. So I don't think they'd be against a loan deal where we paid all of the wages. And in that case, I think it's worth it.
if you can get a loan and you can get an obligation based on circumstances. If this player plays 25 games, similar to the Alcaraz one, and you can manage that. The other player we were linked with quite heavily, David Moyes, came out prior to the Ipswich game and said, obviously we're looking at this. Liam Delap at Ipswich now, he's got a £30 million clause in his contract. Is that for you a deal you'd like to see Everton explore? If Everton can not wheel and deal, but Everton can make a deal for Liam Delap to be Everton's number 9 next year. Are Everton a better team for that?
Without doubt, yeah. I mean, although he didn't have his, it's fair to say, his best performance against us. I thought he was pretty poor, to be honest. And I don't know whether it was one of them. Like he was very aware of the speculation and stuff, and I don't know, or Everton had just done a good job on him, but he certainly didn't play well against us. But yeah, I think over the course of the season, his goal return, what he brought to the team at Ipswich, and being honest, I think that's well worth it. But at that price, though, you've got to be honest here. We're probably somewhere near the middle, if not the back of the queue. I think there'll be bigger, better teams, unfortunately, for him at that price. So as much as I definitely do think, out of all the scenarios you talk about, Calvert-Lewin, Betto, Richarlison, he would be the preference. I just don't know if that deal is going to be possible for us, given that his agent's going to have a lot of options, and a lot of options probably where they can pay more and maybe give him better conditions.
Do you know what, the way this summer is shaping up, where we have to wheel and deal, it's quite exciting for me. These names, if you said to me, Everton are going to stay up, you go to Bramley Moore, you're talking Richarlison, you're talking Liam Delap. That's quite exciting, but we've got to get it right. And one player who has came out on Ben Foster's Fozcast last week, and he said he wants to stay. He albeit said that he wants to stay on either the same level of wages on now or an increase. Look, I think this man deserves more respect than he gets because he scored important goals, but he's 32. He's on over £100,000 a week. He wants that or more to stay. Do you give Abdoulaye Doucouré that level of money to stay at Everton?
No. In simple terms, I agree with what you said. And he deserves as much as anyone next week at Southampton to get, a massive ovation and a thank you from the fans, because he's been an incredible servant to the club under various different managers, under various different, circumstances, and he's delivered the goods on a massive level for us in some of the situations we've been in. And he's right. I don't disagree with the things he said. I think it says a lot that he's kind of resorting to that. It was almost like I want to do this so the fans know that I haven't been offered a deal. These are my terms.
It's clever what he's done, isn't it? It's clever. His comments have been clever. I want to stay. I love you, but pay me more.
Yeah, but I think most Evertonians would watch that and go, I don't disagree with you, Abdoulaye, but I also understand why the club are not going to do that. We've been in this situation before. We have paid players at that age a lot of money, and then I think the one thing you'd have to say about Doucouré as well, though, I think, despite the fact that I agree that he's been a brilliant servant for the club, he's also had massive patches where he's not done enough. Like,
he's part of a struggling group for a long time.
Yeah. So although he's come up trumps when a new manager's come in, he's also had long periods where he's done little to nothing, and has let us down along with a lot of other players in that group. So I don't want to be kidded by, again, a patch of form and a bit of emotion to go, oh yeah, he deserves this. We're not a charity. We need to move forward as a club. We need to move forward as a team. And as much as, again, I appreciate what he's done, we need to move past the likes of Abdoulaye Doucouré and improve.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying thank you and goodbye, is there? Nothing wrong with that at all. Judgy, look, I'm going to let you go. I know there's a nice roast dinner and a glass of red wine and a bit of sun in your Sunday afternoon. I hope all our listeners are having just as good a Sunday as Judgy is. Before we go, we've got a big show planned this week, haven't we? We're quite honoured to be down at the Old Lady.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. Obviously, there'll be a few outlets down there, and fair play to the club for giving us our chance to go down and have our own farewell and to record a show from there, and it's fitting and it's only right. But yeah, really looking forward to it, and Yeah, it's going to be emotional. It's probably like, you know, the first real insight as to what, you know, small insight as to what, you know, go walking in that stadium next week or next Sunday is going to be.
Next week, yeah.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. And it should be a top show.
Please look out for that in the YouTube and the podcast links this week. Across the Park podcast, they're going to be doing a show from Goodison Park. We're going to be saying our goodbyes. Hopefully, it's a nice show for you guys to watch. But today was a show about life being better when Everton win. Like I said, we all hope you have a fantastic Sunday. The weather's nice. Go out there and enjoy it. There's no other games on today. Nothing else is happening for the rest of the season, is it? Nothing. It's all about us, and a big goodbye to Goodison Park starts with the Across the Park podcast this week. Thank you so much for watching. Wish you all the best for the rest of the weekend. And as always, up the toffees.